Thank you very much for joining us at today's webinar in conjunction with ePlacement Scotland and BJSS. My name is Nicola Taylor. I'm Head of Operations and Skills at Scotland Is, and we are one of the joint partners who run the ePlacement Scotland programme. It's ourselves along with Edinburgh Napier University. Fully funded programme which aims to source paid placements for undergraduate students across all of the colleges and universities across Scotland. If you haven't got yourselves already registered onto the website, I would encourage you to do that, and I will drop the website details into the chat for you. I'll also drop my email details in there as well, so if anybody wants to reach out to arrange a conversation about it in a little bit more detail, then that's absolutely no problem at all. Now, I will pass you over to Ryan Watson at BJSS because I am very aware that nobody is here to listen to me speak today. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Nicola. I will just screen share with everyone just now. Hopefully that is showing okay for everyone. Yeah, so as Nicola says, I am Ryan Watson. I am people lead at a company called BJSS. So BJSS are an IT consultancy organisation. We've got a global presence, but in Scotland we focus on, or our office bases are Glasgow, Edinburgh and Aberdeen. And we work in the technology space, complete breadth of technology. So yes, within cyber, but also technology and engineering, cloud, managed service. So full breadth of technology services, and a lot of our services do touch on cyber, even if not specific to cyber. My role at BJSS, I am the people lead, so I look after the entire people life cycle. So all the way from talent attraction, taking it through to people's careers, so their career development, what they're delivering on projects, and then post-employment as part of alumni relations as well. So really got a touch point at every point of someone's career at BJSS. Personally, I've worked in the technology industry in Scotland for around 15 years now. On a day-to-day basis, I've looked at tens of hundreds of thousands of CVs. So here to give a bit of career advice. Sorry, that jumped on mute there. What organisations actually look for, but also a bit of a perspective on hints and tips to look at. I've recruited globally. I've recruited across all of technology. I've recruited in various cyber and security areas. The advice that I'll give you today isn't the only solution. The advice I give you today isn't the perfect solution, dare I say. It won't 100% guarantee your dream job. What it is just real insights from someone that works in the industry, that is reviewing CVs on a day-to-day basis, and gets a real understanding for what companies are actually looking for. Unfortunately, there is nothing that will guarantee you your dream job, but there is a few bits of advice I want to give you before we actually start on the careers advice. The first one is failure is not a bad thing. So when you get rejected at interviews, when things don't go your way, failure is one of those words that have horrible connotations. And I'll probably say this a few times through this presentation. I'm speaking from someone in a lucky position that's in their dream job. So you might be sitting there saying it's easy for you to say failure isn't a bad thing. But genuinely trust me, if you're applying for jobs, if you're getting interviews and you're not securing that dream job, there's two things to take away from that. One, it's a great experience and it's a great learning curve, and you're putting yourself in those right positions. And if you are in those positions, it will come off for you. It will work for you. And then secondly, another bit of advice to take from that situation is if every interview you go for in your career, you secure that job right away, you're potentially not pushing yourself hard enough. So that falling short is a sign that you are really pushing yourselves to the advanced levels of where you want to be and what you want to do. So don't be afraid of failure. And finally, there'll be a few themes come through this presentation, but I've got one ask for you all, and one ask really to remember. In your career, in your job search, be true to yourself and what you believe in. And that's really what will help you secure the dream job for yourself, is being true to yourself, and being true to what you believe in. So let me start with some career advice. What to wear at job interviews. So you'll see from this picture here some very formal dressed people. This is the exact image that I find when I go into stock images and search for suits. As you can see, they're all very presentable, all nicely polished shoes. Guys' top buttons are done, tie up to the top. This is what we would probably find if we went on to Google and searched for job interviews. So society has said to us from a young age, this is what we wear to an interview. We're presentable, we're smart. Even if that's not what we're comfortable in and that's not who we are, that doesn't matter. This is what you wear to a job interview. And we've had that told to us thousands, if not millions of times. Your CV. One of the greatest questions I get asked about in recruitment is around CVs. And it always goes down to that question, how long is a CV? How long should your CV be? We all hear it, we all know it, and we know the answer. It's 2 pages. No one's quite sure why it's 2 pages, but we're told it's 2 pages and we kind of go with it. It's 2 pages. I have seen people who have had 4 page CVs take it down to font size 6, font size 4, just to squash it into 2 pages. I'm not sure why, I'm not sure how, but they were ticking that 2CV box. So that was all that mattered. We're told to use templates. We're told it must be in a standard format. It must be the set template. Don't deviate from that. It must be exactly as you're told it should be. Going back to when I was looking at my first jobs and coming through schools, I was told that I had to carry a national records of achievement with me. For you, those that don't know, it was a red leather bound folder, and I say it wasn't real leather, leather effect folder. And I was told if I didn't have that completed, I didn't have that around, I'd never get a job. I don't know where it is now, but I do have a job. The other thing we're told about CVs is don't put them in PDF format. Now, I can answer that one, why it is, and that comes down to a lot of recruiters are just lazy and don't want it in a PDF format because it won't go into the system that they're using. So yeah, when we look at CVs, it must be 2 pages long, it must be standard format, and it must be in a Word document. Job interviews. Again, we're looking at this job interview picture, and what we're seeing is formally dressed people. Again, everyone's got on suits, a lot of serious faces. They're dressed to impress. This is all very similar. They're all dressed in an identical way. High pressure situation, sitting in a corridor, waiting to get called in. It's almost like out of a film with people waiting in the corridor to get called in for the interview. And these are the types of careers advice that I've seen throughout my life that we still see in some places, that it has to be formal, it has to be out with your comfort zone. Interviews should be tough, interviews should be a difficult experience. Your CV has to be 2 pages. Look there, those people have even printed their CVs and taken them in a nice little folder. This is what society has told us. How about we put some of that in the bin? I'm not saying that any of that advice is bad advice. I'm not saying any of that advice is wrong advice. I see things slightly differently. And one thing, linking back to the start again, it's about the individual and it's about you. If you were sitting there nodding your head going, I love wearing a suit, I love wearing a shirt and tie to work, my CV's 2 pages, and my dream job would be the toughest interview process that I've ever had. I'd get grilled, it would be stressful, and I'd enjoy it, then great. There are companies out there for you. There are companies that expect that. There are companies where you'll wear a suit to work 7 days a week. That's fine. You go there, enjoy it, and work there. But there are other options and there are other ways. So let's take it back to the real start. Who can work in cyber? The easy answer to that question is absolutely anyone. BJSS is a business. We have people who have got first class degrees from some of the best universities in the world. We have people who have got 12 weeks cross training projects that have came in from different industries. We've got people from all corners of the globe working for us. It really doesn't matter what your background is to gain a career in cyber. There's a lot of debate around what degree you have, how you get that degree. And being honest, there are some companies that will want a first class degree from 4 universities or 5 universities. And again, that's fine. If you have a degree from that university, if your degree is a first class and you're happy with that and that company wants that, great. But what I will say to you is, if you have a degree from a different university, if you don't have a degree, if you are trying to learn skills in a different way, it doesn't matter. There are cyber roles out there for everyone. And it's about finding your company. If you have a passion for someone, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. Because genuinely, passion outweighs so much other things in this industry. The cyber community is so opening, so welcoming, especially in Scotland. But it's about how you approach it and finding the right thing for yourself. So, starting off with some advice, there's a lot of expectations around you, and you can see from the slide here, you've got the company, you've got society, and then you sit in the middle of it. And I'm keen to, I suppose, clear out some myths of some of the views on hiring and talent acquisition with this slide. So companies' views are very important. You need to find a company that is right for yourself. And that's a challenge, but it's a challenge worth having. And again, I speak of a person in privilege in my dream job. I've only become comfortable fully with myself in the workplace since I started working in my current role. I've had jobs that I've loved, I've had jobs that I've done very well at, but there was always a little part of me that I hid away from myself. I'll discuss it a bit more in the interview section of this presentation. But I suffer from something called dyspraxia. Basically, it suffers hand-eye coordination, poor writing, poor spelling, and my entire life writing on a whiteboard, as you can imagine, with poor handwriting and spelling problems, was one of the scariest things for me ever. When there was a whiteboard exercise in a workplace, I would hide away. I'd make an excuse to go to the bathroom. I would joke around, anything not to have to hold that pen and write in front of people. And I was never comfortable saying why or how or what. I'm now at the stage where I'm comfortable actually writing in front of people, and accepted for that. And my message to take away from that is find a company that is right for you, and all your worries will drop down hugely. You'll still have worries, you'll still have problems, but the real way to think about it is if you're keeping part of yourself away from the workplace, so if every day you're only bringing 80% of yourself into the office and this little 20% is kept at home in a box, you'll never fully be able to commit to what you want to achieve, what you want to do, and what you want to do career-wise as well. Your brain will always also have that focus of, I can't speak, I can't do, because there's a little bit of me just leaving that behind. There's also the society influence on it. One of the biggest ones we see, and I'm sure anyone that's on social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, will have seen debate around tattoos in the workplace. It comes up all the time. Is it right? Is it wrong? What is it? If you've chosen to have tattoos, that is you as an individual. They tell a story, they tell part of who you are. And if a company doesn't like that, then that's that company's choice. Again, remember, there's a society, there's a company, and there's you in the middle. If you've made that choice, you will find a company that appreciates that. So, yes, of course, there's boundaries that we need to remain in, as part of society. But if you don't like being smart, if you're a hoodie and joggers type of person, there's companies out there that will allow that. If you're a going to the office 5 days a week person, there's companies that will allow it. It's important to make sure that setting off in your career that you find the right company, because that environment will let you expand and let you grow. So let's go back to the tips that I was given at the start and look at them with a different slant on it. So your CV, say size doesn't matter. Of course it does. If you've had one job and your CV is 30 pages long, then it's too long. So the question, how long is too long? It genuinely doesn't matter as long as the information in there is correct, relevant, and applies to the job that you're applying for. Always look at your CV and think, why have I included that information? Make it about you. One really important thing to think about with your CV is when you look over it, say, is this me on paper form? Does this tell my story? Does this tell who I am? Does this get my interest? Does this get what makes me a special person? And that goes the whole way through your CV. Yes, your hobbies, yes, your skills and interests, but also your career history. And the hobby section on your CV, again, a lot of people say it's irrelevant, don't include that. some of the best information I've seen on CVs has came in that hobbies and interests section. But it's about being yourself. Don't fall into the trap of putting, I like to watch things on Netflix and I like going out for dinner with my friends. Probably everyone that's reviewing a CV will have seen it 101 times. One of the best hobbies I seen on a CV was I enjoy watching Netflix serial killer documentaries. Here are my top 3 serial killers and why. It was a bit scary at the time. That person is now a work colleague, so it worked for them. But don't be afraid to show your personality. I will always remember that CV. And the first time we spoke, it was the first thing we discussed. It really opened a window. So don't be afraid to include things that are a bit different. Don't just fall into the trap of just including the information. If you enjoy going out for food, where do you enjoy going? What's your favorite meal? If you enjoy watching things on Netflix, what is it? Really share yourself. There is one formal ask that I have when it comes to CVs. Make sure you've checked it and make sure you get someone else to check over it as well. One, for spelling, grammar, making sure it's formatted nicely, but two, to also make sure that it does reflect you. This is your chance to open a door. Job interviews. Job interviews have changed. Again, there are still some places that will be, you will sit across a desk from someone and be asked direct questions, and it will be awkward and it will be stressful. I, previous life, when I first started in recruitment, knew a hiring manager that I didn't work with for a long time, who used to make people either sit on a wobbly chair or in direct sunlight as an interview because he saw it as if they can get over this, they can cope in every situation. Those types of situations shouldn't be happening. It's not just about sitting at a desk. It's about having a conversation. You should kind of enjoy an interview. And what I mean by that is the interviewees should be making you feel relaxed. They should be giving you insight into a company. It should be a chance to talk about you, and that should be a subject that you know inside out and are fully comfortable with. It should be a chance to learn more about them, but it also should be a situation that you don't worry about. And again, linking back to my original point that I was discussing when I was mentioning my dyspraxia, interviews should also make adjustments that are reasonable to make it comfortable for yourself. If you've got something that you feel won't allow you to perform your best at interview and a company doesn't make a reasonable adjustment for that, you really need to start thinking what they'll be like to work with on a day-to-day basis. Again, I went to an interview at one point and I had to do a whiteboard exercise, and it was the worst experience of my life. Companies are changing. A lot of our interviews are moving away from traditional question answer sessions and moving towards practical sessions where you can show your skills and experience. And again, those practical sessions that you may come across in interviews are a great chance for you to, one, show your skills, but two, show what it's like to work with you. Remember, in these practical sessions, companies and businesses aren't always looking for the perfect answer because we don't always have the perfect answer in a working environment. Sometimes we Google, sometimes we need help of a colleague. And these types of interviews will really give you a chance to chat over with people and see what it's like to work with them. And I think a final thing on the job interview, it doesn't always have to be right. Speak to anyone, and they'll have companies that they've interviewed with that were the perfect company for them and wasn't the perfect company for them. So don't ever feel just because you've attended an interview that that needs to be the job for you. If it doesn't work out for either way, that doesn't matter. There's plenty of other opportunities out there and plenty of other companies out there for you as well. And that really gives a focus on the job interview. Taking it to just a final slide for myself, and linking it back to the start, but also with a bit of a cheesy quote, because who doesn't like a cheesy quote? Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. The Scottish tech industry, for me, is the best tech industry in the world in terms of community, support, and opportunity. So speak to people, network, make friends, and your career will look after itself. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask?
You can either raise your hands virtually if you want to, or if you would rather, you can pop your questions into the chat box as well, and we can pick them up from there. So I have a question, Ryan, if you don't mind, just
Of
to
course.
kind of kick things off. What do you see as the importance of cover letters when you're making
Oh,
applications for roles?
that's a tricky one. My personal opinion, and some people love cover letters. My personal opinion is your CV should be able to do the talking that a cover letter does. Now, some roles will demand a cover letter, and some roles will want a cover letter. That's great. I can see the value in it. I can see what they add. But for me, if your CV does the talking, you shouldn't need a cover letter. In a cover letter, you will generally express that you're interested in applying for the role. Well,
Yep.
we have your CV, so we know you're interested in applying. You'll say why you are right for the role and why your skills match the role. Again, your CV should have that. So personally, I think a well-written CV should cover off anything that a cover letter shouldn't. Cover letters probably come from a time again where applying for jobs was a lot more different. Sometimes
Yeah.
you were applying actually in writing, and that was the actual cover to go with the posted CV. As the world's evolved, there are probably better ways to get your views across and get your opinions across. So, what I would say to anyone is if you're applying for a role that doesn't require a cover letter, go onto LinkedIn, look at that company, find out who the hiring manager is. If you don't know
Yeah.
who the hiring manager is, find out someone who might be in that team, drop them a connection request, say, hey, I've applied for this role. Do you know who the
Yeah.
best person is that I can send a connection to? Drop them and just say, hi everyone, I'm interested in this role. It's opened that door, it's opened that window, and it's built that relationship. So rather than a traditional letter, it makes you stand out a bit more. And it's amazing how many people don't do that.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So a question's popped up into the chat box here, so thank you very much for that. So the question says, hi everybody, what advice would you give to someone looking to do a career change into a tech role from a hospitality role?
Yeah, so everything that I mentioned in the presentation is exactly for that. So, as a business, we've hired people from hospitality backgrounds, from retail backgrounds. I think it's about really using your skill set and evolving your skill set. So, I actually put a LinkedIn post out this week, and it mentioned a few tools that if someone is looking to bridge the skill gap and cross train. So, firstly, YouTube. It has every topic on it under the sun. You can look at videos, you can look at modules, you can look at TED Talks, you can really upskill yourself hugely by using YouTube. Udemy, great online platform.
Yep.
It is probably the same cost as Netflix subscription. Again, I know it is a cost, but there are courses you can do, there's experience you can get, there's things you can do. Meetups. So if you go on the Meetup website and search whatever area of tech, if it's cyber, Nicola was saying at the start, there was over 100 cyber events this week in Scotland. They're a great way to network, to meet people, to grow your experience. And I look back at the start of my career and think when I went to networking events, I used to hate it in terms of that nerves of speaking to strangers and speaking to people.
Yeah.
But the community is so open, so don't let things like that worry you. Don't let things like that cause you problems.
Yep.
Trust me here, even the most experienced networker still worries when they walk into that room. We're all in the same boat.
Yep.
You don't need to go and talk about work, but if you're attending events and hey, I'm interested, how did you get into industry? These conversations will flourish and really help you. So anyone that's cross training or moving into a different area, for me, it's about building your network, meeting people. And again, LinkedIn's a powerful tool.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to connect to people.
Yep. And I think the only other thing I would add to that is if you're unsure about which area of tech that you would like to consider as your opportunity, because it's obviously a vast sector that we work within. The Skills Development Scotland, My World of Work, Workplace has a really good kind of transferable skills section on it. So you basically go in and talk about where all your kind of key strengths are, and they suggest different types of roles and opportunities that might fit with the skill set that you already have as well. So that might be a kind of really good starting point for you. So the questions are coming thick and fast now, Ryan, so I'll just work my way down then. So I've got another question here that says, hi, I'm currently doing an HND cybersecurity at Fife College. I find it hard to equate the qualifications to the professional qualifications like MS, TIA, etc. that companies usually ask for in job adverts. So do you have any advice on how we might be able to navigate that scenario?
Yeah, so I've actually discussed those letters quite a lot this week and what they mean, and are they more relevant than experience? How does it all fit together? And again, it's that debate that goes round and round. One thing I would say is if a company are looking for certain qualifications, certain experience, and that's specific in their job advert, and they reject you because you don't have those qualifications and experience, honest answer is there's no real way to navigate that. That is what that company set their stall out to. That is the
Yeah,
standard that they want. That is what they need. But that doesn't mean that your qualification, whatever it is irrelevant. It's finding the company that doesn't need those
yeah,
qualifications and doesn't need those support.
yeah,
For me, the person is just as important as the qualifications. And in the cyber world in particular, cyber is so fast moving. There's always different challenges, there's different attacks. A qualification that was relevant 2 years ago has probably evolved so much and
yeah,
changed so much.
absolutely.
One of the things that I would look to do, if you do see a specific qualification on the job advert, as we all know, those qualifications are expensive. We can't hide away from that. And sometimes securing the job is the key to getting those qualifications. But look at what that qualification covers, and use the free resources, the YouTubes, the low cost resources like
Yeah.
Udemy, and study those modules that are part of those courses and frame your application in a different way and say, although I don't have qualification A, I've done this studying around each of these modules, so I'm comfortable that I have the knowledge that is required.
That's really good. And just to kind of add to that, so Scotland is the trade body for the Scottish digital tech sector. So we understand that this is a huge problem, particularly at kind of college level. And there's a kind of real disparity between what employers think they need and actually what they really need. So they tend to ask for the world when actually they only need a small portion of that. So we are doing a bit of work just now around that particularly to try and make sure that employers' job adverts are aligning a little bit more with the types of opportunities that and individuals that they're actually looking for rather than what they think they need. So hopefully we should have an update on that soon for you as well. Just another question here then. So, do you need technical experience to get into cyber, such as work placement, internships? And if you don't have it, how do you build your practical experience of applying your skills?
Yeah, so again, it would depend on what area on cyber you want to go into.
Mhm.
Cyber, we can go to the most deepest technical engineering architecture roles focused that are there. But we've got delivery managers, so project managers who work on cyber projects. We have business analysts who work on cyber projects, gathering information. The tech sector and the tech sector that we work in, most roles are probably going to have a cyber security or governance aspect to it, if there is going to be some sort of interactions there. So
Yeah,
no, you don't need to be technical to work in it. It depends on what areas that you want to go into. In terms of how do you get technical experience when you haven't got an opportunity, again, it's using the resources that's available to you. But there's also been a real, I suppose, shift in how you can deliver work as well. So if we look at organisations like the Scottish Tech Army, where you can volunteer and gain
yep,
experience of working in tech as well. So Scottish Tech Army open up opportunities to support charities with tech experience. You will be a volunteer, you'll join part of a team, and you'll work on a real life project. It's not a sandboxed environment, it's a real project. And the support that that gives to your CV is fantastic. You will also get the opportunity to work with professionals that have experience and you can learn from, growing that important network again. And you also get to deliver some work for charities that is so
yep.
valuable that they just wouldn't receive as well. So there are opportunities to actually get tech voluntary experience as well.
Yeah, no, and I think nothing to add to that from my part. Everything you've said there is I would echo that completely. So next question up then is, what advice would you have for an international MSc graduate looking to start a role in cyber in Scotland?
Exactly the same advice for anyone else, whether it's an international MSc, whether it's a UK MSc. The steps are exactly the same. And the key thing is that network. The Scottish cyber community, Scottish tech community, I'm not being paid for saying this, but I seem to be saying it a lot. It's just the best community in the world. I've been at so many events this week, met so many different people. and people care and people want to support. So it's starting by building your network. So if any of you want to connect with me on LinkedIn after this, and if there's questions that you're not comfortable asking with, if you want to start having conversations, that's the best way to do it. It's finding out about what's going on, and it's being open to advice as well. And that's good advice and bad advice. Sometimes people won't always tell you the answers that you want to hear. There's a lot of people that will approach me for jobs, and for whatever reason, we don't have an open role, we don't have the correct opportunity, they don't have the correct skills, that we can't hire with them. I'll always give advice and support, but be receptive to that. Take it on board and action it, and it will help your community and your network a lot further. So whether it's an international MSc, a UK MSc, it doesn't really matter. It's that network and growing your, I suppose, profile is the most important thing.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, if you don't already have yourself a LinkedIn profile, then I absolutely would recommend that you get yourself one. Certainly over the last couple of years, more and more people are using kind of LinkedIn to kind of network and source people that way as well. You know, everybody is trying to be a little bit smarter about how they go about recruiting their staff, so it's not just job adverts, and definitely, you know, do reach out to people, take that chance. Don't be afraid to kind of reach out to people and see what comes from that. So here's another question here. What are your thoughts on aptitude tests as one of the steps of the interview process? I applied for a job internally within Scottish Water, and I had to complete self-questionnaires and even a timed puzzle game. Is this something that might be used more often within companies?
Again, it goes back to that point that I said earlier, that different companies will take different approaches, and that skill set will work for different approaches. So us as a business, we don't use aptitude tests. Businesses that do, great, they get value from that. That really understands, that really helps. Businesses that don't, again, it's all each on their own. They personally don't add a huge amount of value for where I'm recruiting and what we're recruiting for. But that doesn't mean they're a bad thing. And again, this really comes back to finding your place, finding your home. If you do a timed puzzle and that really appeals to you and you find that exciting and you go, that was great fun, then you're probably on the right path. If you don't, then you need to think, was that right for me or was it not? So yeah, they add huge value. You can find out a lot about yourself. I've done a variety of them. Sometimes the results are interesting, sometimes they're quite scary. The good thing about aptitude tests is I always say that if you get shared with the results for you, they're always really good as a bit of self-awareness. If you can see, so if they grade you by a personality type, it always really helps you to go, that's how I'm showing myself as an interview. It's really that collaboration of, that is who I am as a person, or that's how I come across in an interview. Great, that is what I'm like day to day. Or no, actually, I need to start thinking about how I'm doing in an interview as well. So, yeah, I don't use them for interviewing, but if a company does and they get value for them, then that's great.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said there, Ryan. I think for me, aptitude tests can be very beneficial in certain circumstances. But it really depends on what the employer is looking to get out of it and why they've, you know, used that in the first instance. I was at a talk on Monday where they were talking about the skill shortage, and an organisation had used aptitude testing for their own existing staff to see if anybody had the kind of cybersecurity skill set or that kind of way of thinking as a way to identify individuals that might be, you know, most suitable for upskilling opportunities. And that worked really well within there, and is another kind of good way of trying to help address the skill shortage that currently exists within cybersecurity. So
for Q&A at the end, if you have any questions as we go through, please do pop them into the chat.
I'm just going to pop this person
we'll
on mute. I can find them. So
just
sorry, somebody's cam.
That's it done.
If you got it, thank you. That's lovely. Thank you very much. So I think we've just got one last question in the box here as well. So I'll just read that out quickly. So it says, "Hi, thank you very much for the talk. I was just wondering if you had any opinions on entering the industry through graduate schemes."
Graduate schemes are amazing. Yeah, as simple as that. I love graduate schemes. I think they offer a huge amount of value. It's not to say graduate schemes are the only route in. So just to be 100% clear on that, I'm not saying there's a better route or a worse route. We fully support graduate schemes as a business. We do paid graduate apprenticeships, so it's something that we're really important to us as a business. We have a graduate academy that we have. It's not just a graduate academy, it's a full cross-trainer entering industry academy. So entering through a graduate route's great. What graduate routes will give you, and it depends on the organisation, but with some bigger organisations, they give you real exposure to a variety of different departments. So some of your big corporates will do almost 3 months, 6 months secondments in each area of the business. So it really helps you to grow and gain your experience in a variety of different levels. It's a great knowledge sharing base, and it's also quite a, I suppose, safe environment to go into organisations as well. So it's not the only route, but if you have the opportunity to go through a graduate scheme, then it's a great way to really get started in industry.
Yeah, again, I agree with everything you said there, Ryan. And I think what's really good is there are now a number of different routes to be able to get into industry. And I think that's really good. It's not just the traditional, right, finish school, go on to higher further education and then come out into a job. You've got graduate apprenticeships, which you've touched on. You've obviously got modern apprenticeships as well. And all of these are routes into employment that wouldn't have been available previously. So just another couple of questions are popping up here. Is it worthwhile? Sorry, my dog's just got a plastic bottle in the background there. Is it worthwhile doing hack the box? I've seen a few job listings on here, but not sure if having that rank in HTB is relevant for the job.
I to be completely honest, and I've never came across hack the box before in my life, so I couldn't help with that one at all because it's not something that I've came across previously, unfortunately.
I have to say I'm the same. I don't know, but certainly I've dropped my email details into the chat box. I will definitely go away and see if I can find an answer for you. So do feel free to drop me an email afterwards and we can pick up on that question. Apologies that we weren't able to answer it for you just now. So last up, it's this is a reply to one of the comments in the chat. I'm in a graduate scheme at the moment in Scottish Water and it's brilliant. Still very good pay with quarterly increases in salary. You get to pick the best minds within the company as well, and that is invaluable. So again, just echoes what you said there, Ryan, about the kind of benefits of graduate schemes. Let me see, one last thing. So thank you very much for the presentation. How common is remote working in the industry?
Yeah, since COVID, it's a lot more common. There's a real balance between remote working, fully in office, and hybrid across the industry. And what I would say is it's finding the role that is right for yourself and the ways of working for myself as well. Personally, I would be saying if you're looking to enter industry and the role is fully remote, it's maybe not the best starting point, and it's maybe not the best starting point for gaining skills and experience. So linking back into the comments around being able to pick the best brains in the industry, some of the best knowledge shares that I've had is by sitting across the desk with someone. So one thing I would say is working remote sounds great and you get to think, oh, brilliant, first job, I don't need to leave the house, I can sit with my comfy clothes on, relax, unwind, no commute, and it does have its advantages. But if you're starting out in industry, you really do miss that relationship network. The strongest networks you make will always be face to face. Zooms, Teams have been great. They've really bridged a gap, but nothing will quite beat the value of seeing people face to face. So, yeah, remote roles are common in industry. Just be really careful that you'll get enough out of a remote role.
Yeah, and again, I totally agree with that. We've definitely seen a huge shift in the number of organisations that have kind of moved to work fully remotely. What I would say is that that shift is now starting to kind of come back the way a little bit. People are starting to realise actually it is nice to have an office space where we can bring everybody back together. I think the tech sector in particular is more focused on a kind of hybrid style of working than some of the other sectors out there. But yeah, most of the organisations who moved to work fully remotely are now starting to look for smaller premises, admittedly, but places where they can actually bring everybody back together for a short period of time, or allow those individuals within the organisation who enjoyed coming into the office somewhere to be able to do that. Last question on the box. Could you suggest us some certifications that would be beneficial in order to start a career within cybersecurity?
Yeah, I mean, honest answer is it will depend on what area of cybersecurity you're wanting
Yeah.
to go into, what you're wanting to do, and what your budget is as well. We all know that certifications can be really expensive. My honest opinion is certification isn't always the answer. So
Yep.
be careful of falling down a trap of going, I need to pay £5,000, £1,000, whatever the cost may be, to get this certification to open up a job opportunity, because it might not be the right. Where I would start is work out what area of cyber interests you the most. Is it engineering? Is it governance? Is it project management? Find that, look at some jobs that are in that area, and see what skills and experience that
Yep.
they're looking for. And then really start with your free resources first. So go on YouTube, look at podcasts, and start listening and consuming information from there. And as part of that, then start your networking, and start to create the bigger picture. So my advice is not get certification. My advice is don't jump in and get certification right away. I see a lot of people who spend a lot of money getting certificates that aren't really that valuable or aren't what they need to do. So my advice would be work out really where you want to go, what you want to achieve, what certificates are actually needed, and then build the picture from there. Because you may start going to some meetups, some events, some tech talks, and meet some people that will operate in a different way, give you a different path as well. And you could have spent a lot of money in the wrong direction. So
Yep.
my biggest advice around certification is don't jump in and don't make any rash decisions on it.
Yeah, and again, totally agree with all of that, Ryan. A good place to start is the NCSC kind of website. They've got a kind of breakdown of the kind of 16 top cybersecurity disciplines as they see it. That actually breaks down even further into about 52, and actually the UK Cybersecurity Council are trying to map those roles and how they fit within CyBOK and things like that just now as well. So I'm sure once that bit of work has been done, the 52 will grow significantly further again. But I think there's a common misconception that working in cybersecurity is purely technical roles and it's about getting that certification, and that's not the case. You've got roles that are completely non-technical, things around kind of risk and governance, etc. So I would echo what Ryan has said. Find somewhere that like NCSC that kind of details all of the different types of opportunities that exist within cybersecurity. Have a look to see which one fits you best, and then look to see what the pathways and qualifications and certifications are required for that, because you might find that actually you don't need any specific certification to do it. You just need specific transferable skills to kind of get you into that role. Any last questions? There are certainly no more in the chat box here, but I don't want to give anybody the opportunity to miss out on asking a question. So I'll do one last shout out. Any last questions before we finish things up?
If any questions do spring to anyone's mind, as I said, just connect to me on LinkedIn. More
Yeah.
than happy to give time away from this call as well to anyone that has any advice, questions, or anything I can help with.
Fantastic. We really appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you very much. Again, I dropped my email into the chat box earlier when the webinar started. I'm also happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn as well, so do feel free to kind of reach out. Certainly happy to ask any questions or queries that you might have as well. And if you're unable to get a hold of Ryan, then can obviously make the introduction for you there too. Thank you very much, Ryan. Really do appreciate you taking the time to speak with us all this morning. Certainly, I've scribbled down some notes and things that are takeaways for myself, so I found it useful, if nothing else. This session has been recorded. The intention is to share it out on the ePlacement Scotland website as an additional resource that you can kind of link back into if there's anything that you get. It will also be shared on the Cyber Scotland Week website as well as an additional resource to keep there. You'll be pleased to know, Ryan, that there's a number of thank yous, and thank you for the advice and guidance
Thanks everyone for joining.
coming through on the chat there as well. But thank you again, everybody, for joining us. I am now going to stop recording the session and hope that you have a lovely rest of your day and a lovely weekend. Thank you very much for joining us. Take care.